After the biggest night in TSN wrestling history, we give it to you one more time. Mick Foley, Mankind, next.
Off the Record with Michael Landsberg, brought to you by the Keg Steakhouse and Bar.
We try to listen to what you ask for, and for probably 6-7 months, the most requested guest we have had has been from the WWF, but we don't like to necessarily do one-on-one interviews, so this is a rare show where it's me and 4 guests, where it's me and Dude Love, where it's me and Cactus Jack, where it's me and Mankind, and where it's me and this guy here, our most requested guest since Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mick Foley. Good to see you.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I guess I understand it's pretty prestigious to be on here by myself, and I've watched the show a few times, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm flattered that everyone, not everyone, but that lots of people want to hear from me.
I want to hear how you got involved with wrestling, because I don't mean from a business standpoint,
right.
but you are a guy that the true wrestling fan admires most of all as the toughest SOB out there, who will do anything in the ring to entertain the fans. So,
right.
So where was all of that born?
That was born from growing up watching wrestling and developing my personal preference for what style I like to see. And I like to see things that made me, you know, jump up out of my chair. Things that I thought that there were 2 things that people remembered, and that was classic matches and classic moments. And at that point, I didn't have enough experience to have classic matches. So I said, I'm going to start producing some classic moments. It seems like the last few years, you know, I've blended them together so that it's kind of helped my career.
Is it true that when you were a kid that you set up wrestling rings in your backyard, that you'd have your pals there, and that you would actually jump out and land on cushions and stuff like that?
Well, we didn't set up a ring. I'm sorry, I know I took the first question a different direction, but I got started, yeah, what we'd do is we'd improvise, or no, we wouldn't improvise, we'd actually choreograph a fight. Me and my buddy, you know, and be standing around partying, all of a sudden the fight would break out, and we'd snap-mare, you know, I'd snap-mare him and climb up on a fence post and drop the big elbow, or the Superfly Splash at that time. Jimmy Snuka was my big hero. So this is a story that's been told on WWF, but might be new to some of the listeners. I was, you know, so caught up in Superfly Snuka that I hitchhiked from when I was a freshman in college, about a 400-mile trip to Madison Square Garden. I bought a scalp ticket. I was sitting in the 2nd or 3rd row, and he did the big, you know, the big leap off the top. And for me, I thought, just like, I've got to be able to capture a little bit of that. And from that point, we filmed a little home video in which I was jumping off my bed onto a stuffed animal. And at the time, this is when video cameras weren't quite popular yet. It was the old-time movie cameras. So the big light was on, and all the people in the dorm saw the light and came flocking over, and I had, you know, I secretly took a bunch of food coloring in my mouth when I did the big leap off the bed. You know, landed flat and smacked, you know, I'd hurt my jaw. I didn't know anything about landing, and just, you know, the food coloring came spilling out, and a couple of girls said, "Oh my God, that's disgusting." And I just loved that reaction. You know, I figured I wanted to get reactions from people. You know, I'd much rather lose a match that's memorable than win one that people, you know, won't remember.
We are talking today with Mick Foley, known now as Mankind. You've had other different names in the business, but it's important to say that right now we're talking to Mick Foley. This isn't the act.
Yeah,
this isn't, and I think that that's what's changed a lot in wrestling recently, is that the mask with you literally is off, and this is the true guy, right?
Yeah, I've watched some wrestling interviews, and you know, I won't have to name names, but I saw one with a popular wrestler on, and he never came out of character at all, and it was just irritating. You know, what works well on a show for a few minutes at a time is kind of irritating if you're in this kind of avenue, and we're hopefully reaching people who've never watched wrestling before. And I don't feel ashamed. I feel like when I'm in my character, I'm being Mick Foley also. You know, it's not just something I go on and act I play. I mean, I feel these emotions. I go out, most of the things I say are things I honestly feel.
So it's interesting because you say that you feel the emotions, you feel like Mankind, right?
Yeah.
Like because I mean the thing is that he's looking down, he's not confident in a lot of ways. He's a guy who people relate to because they see their own insecurities in him.
Yeah, I think it's nice. I think it's a nice contrast, like somebody like Austin, who is what people are aspiring to be. You know, that they You know, they want to be able to talk back to their boss. They want to be able to give him the stone cold stunner. Then you got Mankind, who is in a way what a lot of people are. You know, not completely comfortable with themselves, not completely comfortable with the way they look, didn't get the girls, that type of thing. And I think, you know, the fact that I'm succeeding and doing it by taking a lot of punishment is something that people either enjoy or at least respect.
Speaking of punishment,
Right.
a lot of your reputation, right, as a hardcore guy was established in Japan.
Yeah, I'd say before that, but probably cemented in Japan. You know, when people think of hardcore, I've got a different definition for hardcore than most people.
What's your definition of hardcore?
Well, this is coming from talks with Terry Funk, and Terry said hardcore isn't necessarily someone who wraps barbed wire around themselves or who bleeds a lot. It's somebody who loves wrestling so much that they can't get enough of it on TV. They're the guy. I was actually hardcore when I was going to Madison Square Garden as a fan. To me, I mean, you ask me who's hardcore, I'd say Vince McMahon is hardcore. Because he's getting hit in the head with a chair and he's a multi-millionaire. He doesn't have to do it. He does it because he loves it. Me, well, maybe, maybe I love it, but I'm also looking for a financial reward too.
But you're getting financial reward.
Finally,
right?
yeah.
So you're getting hit in the head and you're the millionaire as well.
No, not yet.
Oh,
but well.
So get
look,
an agent. You don't have an agent.
I don't have an agent.
Why not?
I do things the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, but you know what? You're busting. I mean, with some guys, it's cliche, right? You're busting your ass out there.
Yeah.
You're literally doing that. You busted everything but your ass
Sure,
out there.
yeah.
You should be compensated. And if you're not getting it, you should have an agent who says, "Hey,
don't worry. No, this is the deal. I had an agent who said, you know, you're worth a lot more than what your contract's for." And I said, well, my contract's a minimum. He said, but now you're in the big time. And I said, let me tell you what, let me give Mr. McMahon a chance to prove that he can compensate me more than my minimum. And if that's the case, I really don't have a right to go up and say, let's renegotiate this thing. And he has been, I'd say, very fair. And I understand, you know, the last pay-per-view did very big numbers, and I think that I'll share in that. So I'm not worried. That and the fact that I haven't bought a new shirt in 7 years, you know, I'm going to be okay. When I get out of wrestling, I'm not going to need to make a big lifestyle.
Have you bought a new sock in
I buy
7
socks
years?
all the time, you know. My kids color them. They make Mr.
How many
Sock
kids do you
does.
have?
2 kids. So when I came in, there's a trail of socks in my house that had all been colored on, you know, and I knew that Mr. Socko was becoming big.
You were talking about Mr. McMahon, as you referred to him,
Right.
which I may explore later on.
Okay.
Compensating you. You're aware, though, that you're on top right now,
Right.
but you can be moved down pretty quickly. That the strength of the WWF has been the fact that they can always replace their stars.
Yeah, but wow, I mean, I haven't given them any reason
Right.
to replace me. You know, I'm not. I show up on time. I do my job. You can ask people here at TSN. I've been very nice, right? I did a little skit, you know, and I wore the belt, had some fun. I don't see why they'd want to replace somebody like me.
I guess you're giving them right now, especially what they want. And
Yeah.
no one is going to say that you don't give everything that you got. I'd like to talk to you about what you may have left for when you retire. And we'll do that when Off the Record returns with Mankind. He's Mick Foley, and he's ours for the next 20 minutes or so. He is Mick Foley, known now as Mankind, the champion of the WWF, but the champion for the ultimate hardcore fan, and that is because, at least on the surface, it appears as though there is nothing that you will not do in the ring. I'm just looking, you know, I'm always interested in hairstyles. Is that gel, or are those stitches that you have in your hair?
That's Neosporin is my gel. Yeah, that's I was stitched up after the Royal Rumble. I had 9 stitches in my head. I was probably lucky I didn't have more. I've got several lumps also. This is the first time, though, I was stitched up in front of my children, which is, you know, a little different. It was real important for me. They were there, and I don't want to psychologically, you know, scar my kids. So as soon as I came out, I was looking for my kids, let them know that Daddy was going to be all right. And I said, you know, my daughter said, "Daddy, are you okay?" She's just turned 5. I said, "Well, Daddy just got a little boo-boo." She said, "That looks like a big boo-boo." I said,
Well, you know what? For you, that is a little boo-boo. That's nothing. Because,
this is nothing.
Well, but there was something, Hell in the Cell. And again, let's set up this by saying that wrestling is billed by the WWF as entertainment.
Right.
And that Vince McMahon came on the show and say, we're not a sport anymore, we are entertainment. And obviously there's choreography that takes place. But there is an element of truth to it, and that is the pain that wrestlers feel. And if you're not a wrestling fan, don't be at home saying, no, that's not the case. I mean, there are real injuries that take place, and the legendary legendary match of all kinds was Hell in the Cell. I want you to watch the monitor, and I want you to tell me physically what you were experiencing at that particular time.
I'm thinking right now the table looks mighty small, and that actually, I landed in such a way that I landed on my kidney, and it was about 10 weeks before I could move without discomfort. You know, it hurt me for a long time.
So you're being carried off?
Being carried off, and I say, I can't give the people that little of a show, and here I come. The adrenaline's starting to pump, you know, I'm going to grab back in. My shoulder's dislocated.
So you have a dislocated shoulder as you climb up there?
And I'm still making it. Here comes the Undertaker. At this point, I'll be honest with you, there was such a rush. This was not a rush. That was, I never thought the cage would break. Just sickening. If you had a chance to see it again, the chair follows me down and hits me in the face, dislocated my jaw and knocked out 2 teeth. Right there, the thing in my nose was not a piece of table. It was actually half of one of my teeth.
Is in your nose
at that point? It was in my nose, yeah. And why, when they had medical people, you know, attending to me, and why they couldn't have just pulled it out of there, I don't know.
They're probably like me. They'd be looking at you going, I'm not touching it. So just the shopping list of injuries there. You have teeth that are knocked through your nose.
Right.
You have a dislocated shoulder, which you climbed up the cage with.
Yeah, right? My jaw was dislocated, and a
bruised kidney.
Bruised kidney, and that's it was just
concussion.
Yeah, I imagine so, because that was the first.
It's just sort of like an afterthought.
Well,
oh yeah, I had one of those too.
Well, you go to an emergency room. It's hard when you have a shopping list. You have to treat the priorities, and it took about 4 hours. One of my teeth came out completely, and I'm not talking about these teeth, because they're long since gone. I'm talking about one of my bottom teeth, and they actually, because it came out root and all, they were able to put it back in. And that, you know, the dental surgery took about 4 hours. I just didn't have any more time to give them.
So I got to ask you this. You go back into the ring after, it must have been some convalescence period.
1 day.
1 day, well there you go. You go back in the ring,
yeah.
And honestly now, is there fear at that point? I mean, you've been through a lot of pain, and you obviously have a high pain tolerance, but is there some fear?
I'm trying to think back on how I felt, because I wasn't afraid at all. I was afraid of a few things at the Rumble when I was hit with the chair. I was afraid of being too much emotionally for my kids, but I was afraid of being hurt, but I wasn't afraid of the pain. I don't think I was afraid. I may be afraid that I couldn't have a very good performance for a while. That was about it.
You're not afraid then for your life after wrestling? I mean, this is not something to be laughed at. I mean, there are wrestlers that don't retire healthy.
Right. Most of them don't retire healthy.
Shawn Michaels just retired, right?
Yeah.
Had no choice. 33 years of age.
33 and he's gone. Yeah, I'm 33 now, and you know, Shawn was a lot of wear and tear in his body.
Dynamite Kid can't walk,
right?
But
yeah, one of my heroes too. Trying to arrange a benefit for him of some kind, because he certainly deserves it.
But don't you fear them having a benefit for you?
Well, you know what? I was afraid for my family, because my wife and my kids were at home watching, and that was the first time I was knocked out. I wasn't aware of, you know, I don't know how we finished the match. Anyone who looks down on wrestling really ought to rent King of the Ring and see how we finished that, because unlike a real sport, which would take a timeout, you know, there's no timeout. When I came to, I was aware enough to realize we were in the middle of a pay-per-view and I couldn't stand up, and that scared me. I mean, I'm not trying to say that things don't scare me, you know. I was talking about being afraid to be in the ring again. No, I wasn't afraid. I was afraid for my family, afraid because my daughter now thought for a while that every match was like that, you know. And I tried telling her, you know, that was an extreme situation, that Daddy, for the most part, is going to be okay.
But you talk about performance, and you're obviously a real danger to one person, and that's yourself.
Yeah.
Because you feel, from what I'm sensing here, a responsibility to deliver to the audience everything you got.
Yeah. I feel like when people put down $30, they need to see some dividends. And I'm not talking about just getting hurt for the sake of being hurt, because I don't want people to think that I'm reckless either, because I'm not.
Mick, just saw you fall through a cage. You spread the thumbtacks on the mat.
That's not reckless.
No?
No, that's knowing that I'm going to have several little projectiles in my body that are about a quarter to a half inch long, and it's going to hurt for a couple seconds, and then they're going to get pulled out, and I'll be fine. What is a problem is when you can't walk, when you land on your head. There are other people that apparently that's not a big deal to them, because I see, you know, for example, companies that are considered less dangerous than what I do, they throw each other on their head. That's not good. You know, there's a certain amount of respect people have for me, and I don't like to be thrown on my head.
Tell me about the respect, though, that you have. We have to take a break, but very quickly, the respect that you have for other athletes, guys who don't put it all on the line as you do. Do you have, and you don't have to mention any names, or you can if you want, guys that you don't respect other wrestlers because they aren't as committed to the performance as you are?
Sure, I don't have to name names. I'm not saying you have to put your life on the line, because I respect people who are good at what they do and love what they do. I mean, not every basketball player has to dive into the stands after a loose ball. Not every football player has to be willing to take the big hit.
Are there wrestlers who should give more?
Sure.
Okay, we'll take a break, and we'll continue this discussion with the guy now known as Mankind, now known as the WWF champion. On this show, though, he's Mick Foley. Back with Mick, and here's more of Mick Foley in action, saying, "Hey, I'm not reckless." You're out there performing, as you made reference to it, giving the performance, giving the fans what they want.
Right.
Do you have any concern, though, as you put it on the line, that a kid watching is going to say, "Hey, I want to be like Mankind," and is going to jump out his window and, you know, try to land on a mattress or whatever? It's got to come with a warning.
Well, yeah, there are little groups now of, and I'll get back to the kids in a second, but there are little groups out there of backyard wrestlers. I'm like the guru of backyard wrestling now, because that's how I made my, got my break. And they'll give me videotapes, and these guys are killing each other. And I say, guys, please understand, I didn't do one dangerous thing outside of, jumping off a roof. But when I got in the ring, I learned all the basics. I never actually went outside the ring for my first year and a half or so of my career. I actually knew a little bit about what I was doing, could understand injuries and how they happen and how to prevent them before I started doing these things. And I felt like I also had a body that could take it. Please, I mean, kids, use a little common sense. If you want to be like Mick Foley, then, go to college. That's what I say. Anyone who asks me how to become a wrestler, say, how old are you? 19. Finish college and talk to me when you're 22 and have a degree. Because otherwise, it's a dangerous sport. I don't want kids out there pile driving each other. Using a little sense. Some of these holds, like Ken Shamrock uses, can snap a bone in an instant. It's what we do is part sport, part entertainment, but you have to use a little common sense too. And I hope that there's not people out there walking around with bad bones on my account.
But one of the interesting things is that the better you're at it, the better you do it, the more glamorous it looks, the more the lure of mimicking the behavior is.
Man, I don't know what to say.
But what you said, though, is don't do what I do, and that's really important, right? I mean, like, it all comes with a disclaimer, which is, hey, we're pros, we're doing this, don't try it at home.
Sure. I mean, hopefully when people watch a movie, they're not going to climb up on top of a building and take a fall off of it. It doesn't matter if there's a landing pad down there or not. Stuntmen are trained, and we're trained. I mean, I honestly feel, this is true. Let me use my words carefully. When my wife and I first started seeing each other, my wife's very beautiful. I don't know, people probably haven't seen her. And she fell for me when I didn't have any money, which is an important part. And she got this great idea that we were going to stop the car, climb over the fence, and,
Right, okay. We know what you know is.
And she climbed over that fence. She was waiting for me. I got up on the fence, and I said, I can't do it. She goes, why? I said, because I feel like I'm going to get hurt. I don't like heights. I don't like jumping. I'm very careful with my knees. I don't ride a four-wheeler. I don't drive fast. I drive about 5 miles over the speed limit. I'm not reckless, but when I see something in the ring and it's dangerous, it's probably something that I've done in my head 1,000 times, and there's a lot of things that go through my head that I edit out, that I take out because I don't feel like I can do it.
Now, there's an interesting question. What is it that Mick Foley wouldn't do in the ring, that you pondered and you said, nope, wouldn't do that?
Well, at one time I was going to try to develop the backdrop where I land on top of my head, and just could not come up with a way that wouldn't lead to permanent paralysis.
Hold on, give that one to me again.
Take a move where I would land on top of my head. And I was thinking, well, I can shield it with my elbow, I can do a bunch of things, and it just went through a process, and And ultimately, I decided that would be a very bad idea. And I've never done it. And if you do see me land on top of my head, it's probably a mistake.
On that note, we'll take a break, and we'll be throwing out some names, play a little word association with Mick Foley, Mankind, Cactus Jack, Dude Love, and what's to come? Stay tuned. Let us know what you think of the show. Hey, Mick, this is for you. If Landsberg gets out of line, don't be afraid to pull out the sock.
I left him at home.
Excellent news for me. That's from John Thomas. Whatever you think of our show, let us know. There's our website, there's our email, there's our fax number. Do you launder those things?
No. That's what makes them so effective.
Time Magazine picking its Man of the Year. Is it true that you, Mankind, I guess, in your role, were #1 on their online poll and they picked it up?
Yeah, I understand. I was winning by a landslide. I guess won by a landslide, and somehow they decided I wasn't worthy of being on the list, which is just ridiculous. I mean, who's really worthy? I mean, there were other entertainers on the list. I think I'm a pretty viable sports entertainer. I work hard at what I do, and I think it's a shame and a sham, and that they, Time Warner. I mean, the Time Warner is the controls WCW, our competition. I'd hate to think they'd resort to something that petty, but they've been petty before in the past.
Yeah, I mean, they're the WCW, right? One night on Nitro, they went on the air and said, you're going to win the belt, and none of their viewers should turn over, and all of their viewers then turn over,
Yeah,
right?
a lot of their viewers end up turning over.
So let me throw out some names.
Okay.
Eric Bischoff.
Eric Bischoff, great hair, great cheekbones.
And that's it?
Let Steve Austin go. Let Mankind go. I left, but I gave him a 4-month notice.
Let Undertaker go, right?
No, he didn't let him. That was before his time. But anybody who couldn't see the potential in Steve Austin or couldn't appreciate what Austin had done, what I had done, and the names that came in after that with much higher salaries is an embarrassment.
Terry Funk.
Terry Funk, he's my mentor, and I believe the greatest wrestler of all time.
Jim Ross.
Jim Ross, best broadcaster of all time, and without him, I'd probably still be in Japan.
Ric Flair.
Ric Flair, I love some of his matches. Not so sure I love the guy.
Hulk Hogan.
I used to pay to see him, so anything I say negative would be hypocritical.
Paulie Dangerously.
He's a genius, but he looks bad for 33.
As opposed to...
As opposed to... looks great. Right?
Undertaker.
Undertaker. I got nothing but respect for Undertaker. One of my favorite wrestlers.
Vince McMahon. Don't suck up. Give us the straight goods.
Hey, man, I like Vince a lot. I see him out there. I saw him after the Rumble. He looked like a little kid. He did not look like a 53-year-old man. He looks some days he looks 20 years younger than he actually is.
Mick, I think I speak for viewers saying keep it up, but try to take care of yourself. It was a pleasure meeting you and having you today on Off the Record. Mick Foley, known as Mankind.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, you too.
Off the Record with Michael Landsberg is brought to you by the Keg Steakhouse and Bar. For great steaks, good friends, see you tonight. Michael Landsberg's clothing, courtesy for you.
3 years? 3 years. 3 good years.
You're having a great time, right?
The most fun I've ever had.
Really?
And with Mr.